Welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about sources. Sources are objects or writings providing information for historians. They are studied and analyzed carefully to provide a fitting conclusion. There are two types of sources: primary sources and secondary sources. Primary sources. Primary sources are any original sources, written, drawn, or made during the time period which is being studied. Some examples are writings, which can include biographies, recounts, and poems; artifacts, which can include pottery, equipment, or ornaments; and visual items like maps, paintings, and photographs. We are going to be doing a scenario. We are studying the Zaini War, which happened in the year 100 and ended in the year 125. This is totally fictitious. Now let's have some examples. First, we'll have a primary writing source example. The men came rushing in with guns. We could do nothing to stop them. We were on our knees in 2 seconds, pleading for our lives. When they saw we were only civilians, they left at once. We could not believe it. This writing piece was from the Addos of Zaini, written in 115. As it was written during the war, it is a primary source. These two sources are artifacts. They are real things. The first one is a gun, which was used in a war. The second one was a necklace of a civilian living during the Zaini War. Artifacts can provide important information for historians. Visual items play an important role in providing information to historians. The first item is a map showing where to deploy the troops. The second item is a painting of the commander of the Zaini army, drawn in 110. These two were both drawn during the war, so they are primary sources. A secondary source is a source written, drawn, or made after the time period which is being studied. They can be more biased than primary sources, and the information may be less clear. This is because the creator would know less about the time period under study than a person who created a primary source during the time period. Other than primary sources being more accurate than secondary sources are also more or less based on primary sources. Secondary sources can include writings, visual items, and more. Let's do a scenario. We are studying the Zaini War again, which happened in the year 100 and ended in the year 125. It is totally fictitious. The first two items are writings, written about the war. These were both written after the war. The first one is a newspaper snippet from the Persaud Quran in the year 150. The second source was written in the year 205 and is an article from a history book. This article was probably based on a primary source, as the author would not have been alive at the time of the Zaini War. Another possibility was that the article had its origins as a primary source but was not necessarily based directly on a primary source. Now, we have visual items. The first one on the left is a revised map of the Zainian army's military plan. It was drawn in the year 200, so it is a secondary source and can provide a lot of information to historians. The second item is a painting called That Bloody Battlefield. It was drawn by Drew Peters, who was born in 130. This was straight after the war. As Drew Peters was not in the war himself, he would not have known what the battlefield was like, so he probably based his drawing on a primary source. The third visual item is an aerial view of war-torn Zaini. These 10 sources provide excellent examples of primary and secondary sources. Remember to provide a mixture of primary and secondary sources in your historical recounts. Have fun!